we're proud of that, and to be part of the Middle East. Syria had one of the great cultures, the professors and lawyers and doctors. It had one of the great cultures of any country, not just Middle East. And then it went through this terrible period of time. But it's a country that a lot of people are very proud of, and they're proud of the job he's done. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Would you like to say something?
في الحقيقة نحن حققنا إنجاز كبير في تحرير سوريا وإسقاط النظام السابق.
In fact, there was a big achievement.
وكما ذكر فخامة الرئيس خلال سنة ونصف حققنا إنجاز كبير في توحيد البلاد ووضع على السكة الصحيحة من التنمية والاقتصاد.
And as President Trump said, in a year and a half, we made an achievement in bringing the country together, unifying the country and put it back on track.
هذا بفضل الشعب القوي، الشعب السوري اللي تكلم عنه فخامة الرئيس ترامب.
Of course, this is due to our strong people, the strong Syrian people that President Trump talked about.
ثم القرار التاريخي اللي قام فيه الرئيس ترامب برفع العقوبات عن سوريا.
Then the historic decision that President Trump has taken by lifting the sanctions of Syria.
وأيضا مساعدة كل الأصدقاء المحبين في المنطقة من تركيا من دول الخليج من كل المنطقة.
As well as the help of friendly countries and the loving countries in the region, Turkiye and other countries in our neighborhood.
الشعب السوري يشكر جميعا رئيس ترامب.
The entire Syrian people thanks President Trump.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Proud of you. You have any questions?
Mr. President, are you going to remove Syria from the state sponsor of terrorism list?
I think I will, yeah. I think I will. Why wouldn't I? He's done a great job. Maybe he would have brought that up a little earlier, but that's a good question, yeah. Any problems with that? I think we should. Yeah, I will.
Do you still want Syria to help with Hezbollah in Lebanon?
They could help, we'll find out. I think we're making a lot of progress.
Mr. President,
They could help.
Mr. President,
He would do a very good job.
Prime Minister Netanyahu has been critical of aspects of your relationship in the last couple of days with President Erdogan of Turkey. He said that Erdogan has imperial ambitions on neighboring countries, presumably including Syria.
Well, he hasn't been involved with Syria. If you think, he hasn't been involved with Israel at all. And he's left it alone. I wouldn't say he's a friend, because he's not a friend of, as you know, of Netanyahu, of Bibi. They don't get along, I think. But, for me, he's been great. Look, Turkey's been fantastic and a fantastic ally. They're also a NATO country. And Israel, we've done, no president's done as much for Israel as I have. Nobody even close. If you look at, just look at all the things with Jerusalem, all the different things that we've done. The Golan Heights, I did things, nobody has ever done anything for Israel like me. And we've made tremendous progress. And we've made a lot of progress with Iran, too. We've wiped out their military, but they should have been done 47 years ago.
And if I could, do you think that that Prime Minister Netanyahu should be re-elected? There's an election coming in Israel, or would you like to see new blood?
I can tell you this: he's been a great wartime president. We worked as a prime minister. So we worked with each other very closely, and we went through a very big thing. We did a big thing together, and in my opinion, he's been a great wartime prime minister. I don't know anything about his politics. I'm not sure. I would think he should be popular because he did a very good job. We had and have a very good relationship. But he was a great wartime prime minister.
President
If you had other prime ministers, you know what? There wouldn't be in Israel right now. You know that? There wouldn't be. It would have been blown to pieces by Iran. If you had a weak prime minister, you wouldn't have. And if you had a different president, I guarantee there wouldn't be. And Israel wouldn't exist today if you didn't have me as president.
Mr. President, you said data from the Energy Information Administration revealed that U.S. crude oil production set a new record in the month of April under your leadership.
That's right.
Why is it important to keep hitting numbers like this at this moment in time? Why is it important that you were able to get this done and keep it on this trajectory?
Well, when we decided to do this, it's called the denuclearization of Iran. We have to do it. We have to have. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon, and they admit they're never going to have it. But they behave badly. Always behave badly. There's something wrong with them. But when we did this, we thought oil would go much higher, and it didn't go very high. And now it's coming way down, and you're going to see oil drop very low. Now, maybe we'll do some other things that could lift it a little bit, but I don't think it's going to lift it a lot at all. I think oil is coming down. There's tremendous amounts of oil. Scott, what would you say about that?
Yes, so record production under President Trump in his first term. Now in his second term, the U.S. is an energy superpower. It's why we weathered the conflict better than anyone else. And just this weekend, Bloomberg wrote that there is an oil glut out there. And we think that safe, secure American oil maybe even should trade at a premium to the rest of the world.
So we have, if you add it up, you take Saudi Arabia and take Russia, two big oil producers, we do more than twice as much. We do more than, so think of it, Saudi Arabia, Russia put together, we do more oil, and that's not including Venezuela. It's pretty amazing. And this all happened during my term. We started it at first term. Biden blew it because he had no idea what he was doing. But we are producing more oil right now than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined by almost double. Okay, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
You said that dealing with the Iranians is a waste of time. How do you plan to get the nuclear material and the nuclear assurances that you want?
Well, we've already got the nuclear material because it's so far underground, nobody's going to be able to get it except us because we have the equipment that can get it. But I call it the nuclear dust. The nuclear material is so far down underneath the mountain, and now that's been determined, that it would take massive machinery that we have that no other country has.
Mr.
They can't get
So
it.
you have no plans to go in, boots on the ground?
Why would I go in now? I'd go in when they're completely either eliminated or whatever happened, or an agreement's made.
Mr. President,
Yes.
if you cut off trade with Spain, does that mean that you're going to have to renegotiate a trade agreement with the EU?
With who?
With the EU, any past trade agreements you already have?
We're going to see what happens with the EU. They've treated us very badly for years, and they took advantages. Look, we're very close to those countries, right? And to everybody in the EU. The problem is they took advantage of the United States for years. It's like him. They took advantage of Syria. He's bringing it back. And I'm bringing the United States back. We have the greatest economy we've ever had. We have the biggest investment. 19.2 trillion is being invested right now in the United States. 3 trillion was the record. Under Biden and under the past administration, they had less than $1 trillion for 4 years. We have 19.2 trillion in 12 months. Think of that. We have the largest amount of money being invested in a country in history. Pretty amazing. 19.2 trillion with a T. So, and they're building factories all over the country. I think yesterday Toyota announced they're leaving Mexico. And they're coming, I'm not that Mexico's thrilled about it, but they're leaving Mexico and they're coming to the United States to build what will be, I believe, the largest automobile plant either in the world or at least in this country.
Mr. President, on oil prices
Quick
today.
domestic question. You announced on Truth Social a couple days ago that Walmart was cutting the price per pound of beef by 15%. How big of a deal is that for American customers this summer?
So Walmart has agreed to cut their prices very substantially because things are going down. We're getting it down. We inherited very high prices. We inherited the highest prices in the history of our country, or 48 years to be exact, but I don't believe that. I think it's in history. So under Biden, they had tremendous inflation. Under the Democrats, we had tremendous inflation, record-setting inflation. And now, inflation is way down. Everything is great. We have, the prices are coming down, but we inherited, they talk about they use different words to describe it. They had very high prices. The prices are coming down. And when the oil comes, the oil is coming way down. The oil dropped by 50% in the last month. And when that comes down, it brings everything else down. No, it's affordability. And they came up with the word affordability. Like, I take over, I'm there for 1 day, and they say, affordability. I said, I've been here for remember with the eggs, the first day or 2 days later, I have my first news, and they talked about eggs. They said the eggs have gone up 5 times. I've been in office for 1 day, And I said, well, we'll have to do something. In fact, they told me not to order eggs for the Easter egg hunt at the White House. I should use plastic. I said, we're not doing that. And by the time we came, that was a couple of months later, that happened, and we ordered thousands of eggs. And right now, eggs are way down. The prices are way down, and they're coming down further. So they made up a phony word that they used. They said affordability. They're the ones that caused the affordability prices. I did. But I brought it down. And the oil is coming down very big.
Mr. President, Brent crude is up slightly today on the announcement
that
that
we hit them. Anytime we hit them, it goes up a little bit, $2.
Is that what you mean? Is that what you meant when you said that we might see oil prices lift a little in response
A little
to?
bit, yeah, $2, very little. It's down from, let's say, $135 down to $69. It's dropping, and everything else drops. As oil goes, so goes everything else. But anytime we hit, if we hit Iran, oil goes up a little bit. It's all right.
Mr. President, do you think
And you know
Israel...
what we're doing? We're de-nuking it, all right? We're de-nuking Iran. They're not going to have a nuclear weapon. All right, one more question.
Sir, do you think Israel should withdraw troops from southern Lebanon?
Well, I talked to Bibi about that. Yeah, I think they're going to. I think they want to. I don't think it's a question of me. I think it's a question they want to. And they're getting along with Lebanon. They're signing deals with Lebanon. First time ever. Marco, talk about that if you'd like.
Yeah, we have an agreement that, and it calls, that's the goal at the end. Obviously, Israel's concerned about their security. But the president did a great job bringing those two countries together for the first time
It's a big thing. First time in many years, right? So we have a deal with Israel and Lebanon. And yeah, they'll leave. And I think it's going to work out very well. But we're here for this because Syria has turned around as fast as I've ever seen. Well, actually, I turned the United States around very fast, too. I inherited from a man who was not smart, not a smart person. We inherited from the man where they were running this country so badly with the open borders. Think of it, 25 million people allowed into our country. And that includes 11,888 murderers, most of whom murdered more than one person, okay? We got most of them out, or we have them in jail, and we've done a great job. Washington, D.C. now is considered one of the safest cities in the country. If he came to Washington, D.C. a year and a half ago, he'd fear for his life, even though he never feared for his life before, because it was very dangerous. But somehow his territory might have even been a little more dangerous. I joke because, you know, he comes from a rough environment. Would you say that's right, Tom Barrett? It's sort of funny to think. I don't think he'd be too concerned with Washington a year and a half. But we had a very, very unsafe Washington, D.C., and now it's one of the safest cities in the country. We put the military in. We brought Washington went from being an unsafe to one of the safest cities, and crime is down 94%. We don't play games. And we removed over 5,000 career criminals, many of whom came in through the open borders of Joe Biden. We did the same thing with Memphis, Tennessee. We did the same thing with in Louisiana. You have to speak to the governor, because New Orleans, the crime rate is down 78% in a little while, and they had the best Mardi Gras they've ever had. So we're doing a good job, and he's done a great job too. And I thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, press. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right, that was President Donald Trump speaking alongside the Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa. A couple highlights to run you through. He said that he would remove Syria from the state sponsor of terror list. He also won praise from the Syrian president for his decision to lift sanctions on Syria. He also repeated his idea that Syria could potentially help with Hezbollah in Lebanon. More praise for the Turkish president. And he also talked again about Israeli troops in southern Lebanon, saying that he thinks they are going to withdraw under the terms of the deal that have been worked out between the Israelis and the Lebanese government. Let's bring in our diplomatic editor, James Bays, now, who's standing by at that NATO summit in Ankara. So, James, I just ran through some of the highlights, but I wonder what stood out to you.
Well, I think you've got things that are relevant to Syria, and it was interesting that Donald Trump did most of the talking there, even though the Syrian president was listening to him talking to about all sorts of things, including safety on the streets in Washington, D.C. But with regard to Syria, as you say, the state sponsor of terrorism designation is important, and then the idea that Syria could be involved in Lebanon. Now that, if you look at the history, is an idea that is very, very controversial, particularly as the current Syrian government had troops that were fighting against Hezbollah in Lebanon during the Syrian war. The idea that they might be sent to Lebanon to disarm, some might say, is a recipe for exporting a new civil war to Lebanon, a country that is obviously has a great history of internal strife through the years. I think also an interesting part of the Iran discussions that we've been having today, and President Trump's strong condemnation of Iran's leadership after those US strikes on Iranian targets, more than 80 Iranian targets, following, of course, Iran again hitting tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. Well, he was asked specifically about the highly enriched uranium. You remember that was one of the reasons originally to go to war. The war that happened just over a year ago, the short war, was when they then bombed the sites where the highly enriched uranium was. Now he's saying, and in the early days of the war, after the beginning of the war in February, retrieving that was a key war goal stated on a number of occasions. Now he's saying we don't need to retrieve it. It's buried deep underground, and only the US has the technology that could get you to get under the ground to get it. So what was originally a war aim now apparently is not something that the US is concerned about.
James, throughout this NATO summit, we have heard repeatedly praise from President Donald Trump toward the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. And there has been, really since 2023, this ongoing spat between the Israeli prime minister and the Turkish president, trading insults, trading criticisms, and that has really ramped up as of late. I just wonder, you're the diplomatic editor. How difficult is it diplomatically for President Trump to sort of straddle the line here in keeping the Turks happy and also keeping the Israelis happy?
He's certainly getting complaints. He's getting complaints about F-35s if he finally gives them to Turkey, and giving engines to Turkish jets that they're producing, US-made engines. That's something Israel doesn't really want. You can listen to what the Israeli government says, and then you can listen to what some of the Israeli columnists are saying. They're saying that Turkey is the new Iran. Iran very much the bogeyman for Israel over so many years, culminating in this year's war. Well, now they're saying that Turkey is the new villain in the region. But of course, Turkey is Donald Trump's best friend, and that's why I think Israel has to play it very, very carefully. I think Donald Trump's fine. I think both Turkiye and Israel are very wary of this US president. Both want to keep him on side.
All right, Al Jazeera's diplomatic editor James Bay is for us there at the NATO summit in Ankara. James, thank you.